So it's time to project the East top six, the teams that are guaranteed to be in the playoffs and don't have to worry about that play-in scenario. And I don't know about you, but I feel like the East was the easier of the two conferences. I feel like the powerhouses up top are going to stay relatively similar, with maybe one team dropping out for me. But I don't know, that reaction makes it seem like you've got a big shakeup going. So tell me all about it.
I'm going to agree that the names seem a little bit boring in the East. Yeah, I believe the six names I got here in front of me are the top six teams from last year. I don't see any team literally jumping into this top six at this point. But it's a matter of order, right? It's a matter of seeding right now, and I've got the Bucks at number one. I think healthy Bucks, Giannis coming back, ready to go. Obviously, he's not playing for Greece right now in the FIBA World Cup, so you're considering he's getting a full off-season rest. Adrian Griffin as the new coach coming back too, a little bit of a fresh voice, I think, in the sense will probably give the Bucks that little bit of an edge to really grab that first seed in the East. I have the Cavs at number two, and I was high on the Cavs last year, and they sort of fizzled out a little bit, right? They sort of fizzled out a little bit, and you sort of, I know you said a few times now, you don't like that two big man pairing, right? In that sort of sense, but I think there's merit to it, and they've got a plenty of other players that can score and slash and do a lot of things in that sort of sense. So look, I think the Cavs, considering that at number three I have the Celtics, okay, and the upheaval they've had this season, I think that obviously the Cavs are going to have a better season than the Celtics. That's my pick. So I got Celtics at number three, obviously, and that was almost by sheer default that the teams below them are just less talented. I think that's now the remaining three teams that I have in this top six, which is obviously number four. I have New York, level of continuity there that I think they can build on here. I look, New York's always a risky one, right? It could be maybe every alternate year they crash and burn. Yeah, I think if we go back the last few years, they made the playoffs, then they totally missed the playoffs. They made the playoffs last year. So is it this year they're going to totally miss the playoffs again? And, Brunson gets injured because he's had too much of a workload at FIBA and played an extra, I don't know, 6 or 7 games, or how many games they play, 8 games, I think, at FIBA. So who knows? Okay. But look, I got Knicks staying healthy, hopefully, and grabbing number four seed there, which leaves the Miami Heat at number five. Um, Look, if Dame Lillard ends up there, mm, I don't know. I might feel like I want to move him up a spot. Yeah, home court advantage. But if they stay constructed as is, I think they don't really care. I think they sort of proved that last year too. They want to make top six probably avoids them the play-in scenario. So Spoelstra's probably be like, let's get top six at least, right? That would be a coaching perspective goal that then at least we don't have to sort of play that extra games to see what happens and that risk of elimination. Which then leaves the last team here to fill out the top six, which is the Philly 76ers. Um, Again, they still got the reigning MVP, right? Harden technically is still on their roster, and by all accounts, he will dress and play. Whether he wears a fat suit or not, that's another story. And I guess based upon the talent and if they didn't have so much turmoil, you'd sort of love to move them up 3 or 4 spots, I think. But it feels like they're probably bound for a bit of a slide down the standings here. I've got number six, obviously, in the East.
We're 5 out of 6, the same. So exciting. Couple of teams in the same spot, most of them shuffled around. Number one is the Bucks for me as well. I agree. I think they kind of proved that last regular season. They're clearly dominant in the regular season. Giannis's style of play is quite easy to manage in a playoff series, or at least plan for. But in the regular season, he just has those nights where he just kills you. And I wouldn't be surprised that that happens the same. Same for what you referenced with the new coach. I think new blood, a new excitement that might give them, a bit of a system. But it could go the other way. They could be practicing things ready for the playoff series, and that impacts their games. But I think the East is like weaker across the board. Even though there might be better records in the East, I think that's just a byproduct of playing the lower teams more. Celtics are number two for me. I know that Kristaps is a big asterisk right now. What they gave up for Kristaps is still not going to impact their ability to win games in the regular season. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I think there's both a bit of a narrative developing here. They've got something to prove. Get to the finals, then get embarrassed in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now they're suddenly like, oh, do they ever win? So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. They've been very silent in the offseason, probably working out focus. So we'll see how that goes. Three, I have the Knicks. I think maybe one above where you did. I think with Jalen Brunson is legit. I think I maybe didn't recognize that talent throughout the season, and now I kind of see it. There's a lot of praise from Steve Kerr in the FIBA World Cup currently. He's just a grinder, right? And another thing that's probably underrated in my own head, maybe no one else cares, but that Julius Randle contract gets more and more manageable as seasons progress because it gets lower. And that's a piece I reckon the Knicks would like to move off, irrelevant if he's still a 25-point scorer, so to speak. And yeah, we'll see what the Knicks end up doing on that one. Cavs at number 4. It's not the double bigs that concerns me a little bit. I actually just think that lack of small forward that Max Strus is coming in to address that. I don't think that's going to be the barometer that changes it. And I also think that Donovan Mitchell thing has a weird window that's all of a sudden reappeared, right? Where I believe next season, so what 25 is his last year on contract, and that's where the pressure starts to mount of like what's he going to do next. And I think there's a recognition that the Cavs weren't his destination; it was the Knicks, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I got the Heat at 5. The Heat are at 5 because the Dame Lillard thing is a real asterisk, and he may not arrive until the mid-season mark, which means that the Heat might tread water until then. But I agree with you; they do not want to do another play-in scenario. They would rather have home court advantage, maybe for one potential round. I'm not too sure, but yeah, they definitely don't want to be in that scenario again, playing games that they don't need to. They looked very gassed by the end of that season. You wonder if they don't do the play-in round, do they have a tiny bit more in the tank to close out Boston quicker or get a game against Denver? But and then lastly, number 6, I have the Hawks. I think a full season under Quinn Snyder and a couple of changes around. I think we might see a bit of a rebrand for Trae Young. I think he's very conscious of that ball hog villain route. I think he and Luka are ironically taking a very similar path in their careers right now, where they have to reinvent themselves a tiny bit to be successful. And you might have noticed that the 76ers have dropped out of my top 6 completely. If Joel Embiid is all you have left after whatever happens in this James Harden scenario, a player that already got his MVP, so probably feels like that weight is off his shoulders and needs to wait until the playoffs to prove something, but will, I guess, take load management into account, maybe even get injured, and that really hurts his chances. Along with the fact that Tyrese Maxey, great player, but if he's now your second option, that team is not a top 3, top 4 candidate. And if Joel Embiid suddenly left as well and it all blows up for Philly, I don't see them in the top 6. So you're reacting to the lack of Philly.
You've got some real Philly hate right now, and you've got some real negative projections of what's going to happen in Philly. You're sort of outlining the worst case scenario, right? And Embiid gets injured, doesn't really
I don't want any part.
Got his MVP
I don't want any
already.
part of a franchise that Daryl Morey is a part of. That's it.
I guess one aspect here is that if Harden gets moved, some level of assets will come back. Yeah, that's the part here. So he can't walk right now because he's under contract at this point. So if and when he gets moved, some level of assets will come back. And I think the Sixers, if they're simply solely anchored by Embiid and Max is the number 2 option, like you alluded to, they're still a playoff team. But I've got them obviously at 6. But I think look, you've always got a team sneak into that top 6. The Hawks, I don't know. I was looking at these other names here, right? Hawks, Brooklyn, Pacers, Magic, maybe. Okay, and these are the next set of names to talk about that projecting maybe play-in and maybe taking a leap into the top 6 playoffs. But I just don't see it happening. Yeah, Brooklyn's probably the one on that list that feels like everyone's so high on them, and they've got talent, but like they've got like 4 small forwards, right? They're like, that's the key, right? And they probably can win 30 to 40 games, but we're talking about the 45 plus win category here to be top 6 really in that sort of sense. And I guess I don't see that there. Hawks, you're basically putting all the credit in Quinn Snyder, turning that around. Look, again, I don't know what they lost John Collins for nothing. Okay. They're looking for probably for more internal growth now from some of the younger players that are on that squad that maybe got a few less minutes because John Collins was there. But look, I don't know. It just I don't see them making that leap there. That's like I've got, like I said, the same names from last season, the top 6, just in a slightly different order, based upon a lot of sort of what's going on, I guess, with our respective franchises. Yeah, look, man, I don't know. It's that's how I ended up with it. What was your hardest team to sort of break into the six besides miss out on the six besides the Hawks?
Well, whether or not you agree, the Orlando Magic, I feel like will be in that 8 range. And I think doing something, I think Paolo's second year is going to be really impressive. I think I think the addition of Joe Ingles is clearly a life-changing franchise decision moment. It's going to go down. No, look, but in all seriousness, that young core is just getting more time together. And, they may make a trade mid-season to get rid of one of their 17 guards and, create something out of that. I personally feel like they are in contention. The Bulls, if they do something cool, but if they don't, their core is still somewhat intact and they're always in contention. And they almost beat Miami and potentially prevent all the scenarios that occur there. But that would be it. Maybe Indiana, full season of Indiana, but I don't really know if they've done enough addition wise to be there. Definitely not the Wizards. Definitely not Charlotte. Maybe Detroit if there's some crazy Cade Cunningham like health and scenario, but the West feels like it could be 11, 12 deep again. You could see a real pointy race right at the end. But the East, I would be shocked if we are taking the ninth seed too seriously.
This is Two Guys with Spare Time. I'm Faz, this is Nick. You're probably a basketball fan like us, so hopefully you can throw us an assist and giving our video a like and subscribing to our channel.
And if you got thoughts, feelings, or even some suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And thank you for using your spare time to watch us in our spare time.